Okay, we are live. We're going to give a couple of minutes for people to join in, for this to start propagating properly, and then we'll get going on this. Nice to see you, gentlemen. Hope everything is okay. Joe, you're in PST, very early for you, 9 a.m., 8 a.m.?
Southern California.
Yeah, SoCal. Okay. Vaughn is 7 p.m., right?
No, it's just coming up to 6 p.m. here in Malta.
In
So
Malta.
Central European time.
Grant is in Chicago. I'm in the UK. We had to postpone this a little bit because of the daylight savings, Luckily, in the UK, London now, like sunset is like 8:30 p.m. So like, I'm so happy I can't even tell you. You know, For- I'm still sun deprived. Today's not that good, but still, I can't complain much. Now that at least the daylight is there.
See it peeking through your blinds. Looks good.
Yes. I have this black cover sector. I just got rid of it. I don't care because I'm so happy to see daylight. That's why. Yeah. For all those who are joining in, I have Joe from IT.com, Grant from Atom.com, Vaughn from .link TLD. We are about to go live. We are alive. We are about to get started in a few minutes. So Vaughn, are you traveling to Manchester or no? You're traveling to Manchester, right?
Yes,
You
I
are.
am. Yeah, for the ICANN Contractor Parties Summit, which is the 27th of April through the 29th. So,
Okay, cool. And Joe, you're not traveling to that? Joe, are you
Oh, I'll
traveling
be
to
there for sure.
have you got
Wow.
your visa, Joe?
Yeah.
You got your visa to get in the UK?
Thankfully, I haven't been troubled with that yet, but I do have I know they do have a new system that I'm all checked into.
You do. You're going to have to pay the money. Otherwise, you're not allowed in.
Yeah. Oh boy. I'm going to confirm that today, though.
Yeah, well, you need it. Otherwise, you're not allowed in.
Oh boy. Well, the real issue with India for me was the timing. So, I mean, I don't think I would have had any trouble getting it. What I had trouble was getting it in time, and I was at the airport trying, and that just was not going to happen. Not on a Friday afternoon. Um, most I've had a few other times where I've had to get a kind of an instant visa. Vietnam, I needed to do it same day, and I was able to, but I don't know. I just didn't have an easy time with the India one.
I'll send you the link, Joe.
Okay, that'd be nice.
It's called an ETA, and it will cost you 20 British pounds.
Wow.
And that will go straight in Sir Keir Starmer's left pocket. I'll send it to you. Copy.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the dates are the 27th of April till the 29th. It's coming right around the corner.
It's 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
And we do plan to go to INTA too, by the way. We're going to go just for that London meeting, the 2nd of May.
You got to get your money's worth out of that £20 visa, Joe. You got to make that. You got to juice the fruit there, brother.
Yeah, I want to get my money's worth, exactly.
If maybe I have all of you on WhatsApp, email, whatever. If you're coming to London, then we have to catch up for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Well, second, like around that time, I'll hit you up. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm going
think
to have an extra few days in London because there is a
that's good.
gap.
Then 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
let's
a gap of about just maybe a day or 2 days
let's
between ICANN's
done
contracted parties and the INTA
done
meeting.
done. Let's meet up there, and one is 100% for sure. Tapas and sake and Soho. Okay. Don't ask me why I said that, but I have had the best meetings at this tapas bar and the best conversations, and it all leads to big business. I don't know why. It's like a lucky spot for me in London, in Soho. Okay. But anyways,
The best things don't happen at the meetings. They typically happen after the meetings or
yes,
during the evenings.
absolutely, 100%, 100%. Let's get going. I'm going to start. We're going to get going, and before we get going, I am proud to say that Hostinger has sponsored this. Okay, so I'm going to play like a short message from them.
This video is sponsored by Hostinger. Their business web hosting plan offers powerful features, great speed, and strong security, perfect for anyone serious about growing online. You can get an exclusive 10% discount by using the coupon code WPLegends at checkout. Visit www.hostinger.com/WPLegends.
That was it. Hostinger, Bluehost, Cloudways, JetHost, there have been so many. .link actually also, they've all been supporting WP Legends. So I'm very grateful to you all. Okay, The Stage by WP Legends is where we bring together the people shaping the internet to have real, honest conversations. No hype, no sales, just how things actually work behind the scenes. And today we're talking about something most people take for granted, how the internet is actually named. We've got three very different and very important perspectives here today, from the domain industry itself, from modern domain extensions, and from the world of branding and naming. This is the full picture of how names on the internet are created, valued, and used. Joe Alagna has spent decades in the domain industry and now leads IT.com domains. He brings deep insight into how domains are bought, sold, and valued at scale. Vaughn Liley represents .link, one of the newer domain extensions challenging how we think about naming online. He brings a perspective on how the domain space is evolving beyond traditional norms. Grant Polachek is from Atom.com, working at the intersection of domains, branding, and naming strategy. He helps companies find names that actually work, not just technically, but emotionally and commercially. Gentlemen, I welcome you all. First of all, you've all been on my podcast individually, and I'm very glad that I'm bringing you all together like this. Okay, so to kick things off, I want to bring up a very exciting topic. Who actually controls how the internet is named? I know people can find answers on Wikipedia, etc., whatever, but Joe, why don't you get going? In your words, who actually controls how the internet is named?
Well, everybody knows that Al Gore invented the internet, right? Um, No, actually, how the internet is named, I have no idea because these things just happen over time. It's the internet. People have called it different things, but if you're asking how TLDs come into existence, that's something that I think I have a lot of experience with and have studied for many, many years. And I do think people would argue with me. I do think ICANN is really in charge of what happens on the internet. It's a it is generally transparent, and that's another thing people would argue with me. I mean, uh, they like to think of themselves as a bottoms up organization, consensus driven. But there are rules, and once the board makes a decision, um, the names that we use for to the right of the dot are determined by those decisions, and you can't just pick any name. There's a lot of people over the years who think they have a internet, but they're not on the internet. If they're using their own, if they're using their own naming conventions and they're not connected to what they call the IANA root, and there's only about 1,600 top level domains in that root, then technically they don't have full access to the internet. So, in my opinion, to answer your question in a short way, I think ICANN controls how TLDs are named.
Mm.
And
Mm.
proof of that is what happened in 2012 and what's happening in 2026. It gives whoever gets a TLD gets full access to the global internet, not just their own internet that are running from their office or their bedroom.
Got it. It's called The Round for everybody who wants to learn, and we learn about this today, The Round. But Vaughn, in your words, TLD, you've been in this game for such a long time also. So what are your thoughts about this?
Well, in terms of the naming of it and the origins?
Yeah.
So I don't want to date myself, but the origins of the internet, as I understand it, it was actually a mechanism that was devised and put in place for communication back in the Cold War era, so that actually the military could communicate with each other across what was at the time a private network. That then was adopted by educational institutions, and then that morphed into the internet as we know it. And I think that's broadly referred to as the DNS, the domain name system. And that is largely controlled by ICANN, which is the International Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers, based out of Marina del Rey in California. I think the exception to that would be CCTLDs, Joe. I think that's fair to say, right? So a CCTLD, which is a country code TLD, they do not come under the same governance model as GTLDs or TLDs like .com, .net, .org, and so on. They're slightly different, but they do all coexist. And then there is a slight nuance in all of this, and I suspect the nuance is around how China controls their borders on the internet as well, and that's governed by MIIT.
Interesting. Grant, your perspective on this? We got the history already. We got the history lesson, and we know that the round is coming up, very, very soon. But you guys, first of all, congratulations. You're now officially a registrar. Okay.
We are.
I saw that news, and you sold a pretty massive $500,000, $1 million sale. I saw it on LinkedIn, something like that.
1.5 million. Faster.com. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great buy. We're really happy for the buyer who now has a huge digital asset to build an amazing brand on.
So I wonder, is the internet named by this massive group of investors, or is it actually the registrars, this sector? I remember, Vaughn, you also mentioned something like that. Yeah, that some investor owns 80,000 domains or something like that.
Yeah.
For the listeners, though, it would be important, actually, Gautam, just to talk about the hierarchy, as it were, because you have registry operators. So these are the guys that effectively keep the ledger of which names are being used and by whom. Then you have the registrars, so people like GoDaddy and people like Namecheap, where you go and register a name, and people like Hostinger, by the way,
and now Atom.com.
Now Atom.com. Yes, not to forget Grant. Apologies, Grant. And then you have the registrants.
Yeah.
So you have a registry. They do not typically sell to end users. The registrars distribute and sell the names to the registrants. The people who actually register the name. So the name that Grant was referencing, so whoever has bought faster.com is the registrant. It sounds as though you are the registrar in this particular occasion, Grant. Did it get registered through you or somebody else?
That is a wonderful question. I assume that it is, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the actual registry operator would be VeriSign, who run the .com top level domain. So there's almost like this 3-tier architecture, as it were.
Wow. Okay.
Just going back to Vaughn, to your earlier point on the country codes, they still have a place in the root.
For sure.
So there's an IANA root. I'm looking at the root list right now. There's 1,591 of them in my last count. And by the way, that also includes these new IDNs, the internationalized domain names, which have other than Latin scripts. There's a set of probably 100 or so, I don't know the exact number, of these IDNs. But the internet you need to be in that root if you really want to be a true part of the internet when it comes to naming, and which goes back to your original question. So country codes, IDNs, the traditional top level domains like .com, .org, so forth and so on, and then the new TLDs, which mostly came out in 2012.
So I think what it is, Gautam, it's probably the most proficient example of interoperability on a global scale, because if you register a domain name and it is in the root zone, and it's resolving and the DNS settings are set, it is like no other environment. There is, it's completely interoperable. It's not like I've got a Nokia phone or I've got an iPhone or I've got an Android, whatever it happens to be. No, this is all fully interoperable. And the person that is credited with creating the modern internet as we know it is Sir Tim Berners-Lee, when he wrote the manifesto for the web. And basically, his vision was that the web was built on links, is the truth. And if you think about it, a domain name is effectively a human readable label for an underlying IP address. So when you click that, it's basically it's masking the underlying IP address.
Mm.
So in the same way, if you had a motor car, you would identify it by the license plate for our friends in America, number plate if you're in London. You don't identify the vehicle by the VIN number, even though each vehicle has a VIN number, which is a much longer alphanumeric identifier. That is the absolute identifier of the vehicle, but in actual fact, the registration plate is the masking layer, which is effectively what the domain name is in this instance. If that's a good analogy, so people can sort of understand it.
Very clear. Super, super understood. On that front, let's bring this today. What makes a domain so valuable today? Let's start with Grant here, okay? $1.5 million for faster.com. AI.com, 70 million, 75 million. I saw the news. And I was interviewing Jeff from saw.com the other day. He was involved with that in some way or the other. I don't know. But what makes a domain so valuable, Grant, in your words?
Right. I mean, it comes back to the intersection of what we were just talking about, is the functionality, which gets very technical, but is exceedingly fascinating. Like, imagine a place where it was hard to get to a website, where you had to, where we were talking about Web3 for a minute, you had to download an individual app for every single website. Like, imagine if it was hard to use the internet, right? The beauty of it is how easy. And then the intersection of the functionality of all the things that we do with our domains. People go to them, they're on our email addresses. We use them for every single thing that we ever sign up for. These are all domains, and the brand that you're building on top of it. Right? So if you're building, it's the language that is obviously much older than the internet, right? The words that you're using, those have power in and of themselves. And there's things that make a word powerful. Is it short? Does it have meaning already? So on and so forth. Just as I was thinking about an example, and it's just a little thing, but I think it's such a powerful story. Adam.com used to be Squad Help. And for years, we were doing PR work and wanted to work with Forbes. Right? Everybody's done PR work before in their lives. For years, we'd been pitching them. Literally, like 2 days after we rebranded to Adam, and probably 80 emails prior, we sent them an email, same email we'd been sending, and it had Adam.com on it. They go, "Yep, you can be part of the Forbes Council. Write for us when you want to." And it 100% was the difference between squadhelp.com and Adam.com. So it's obviously there's just so much infrastructure behind it, but the name itself, the word itself, has power. And
Good point.
we've known that for it's in even every religious text that you'll ever read. There's something about words and naming. It's just they're powerful.
But here's the fun part. Joe, why not faster.it.com?
Have that too, for sure.
Well, let me just expound a little bit on something that could have easily been overlooked. And that was, Vaughn said something earlier that I think about all the time, that domain names are the human technical interface. Okay? Domain names are what make the internet usable. And domain names are, the way I look at it, a lot of business is done online today. In fact, some would argue that, everything is going, virtual. More commerce is happening online every single year. There's still a lot more to happen. But if you don't know how to do business online, you really don't know how to do business in this century. And domain names are a very important part of how people do business online, because domain names are what people remember. So if you have an awful domain name that's not memorable, that's not short, that's not intuitive, people forget you. And so you have to continue spending money on ad dollars, AdSense, Facebook ads, this kinds of ad. It costs a lot more. But if you have a memorable domain name, you asked about it.com. I mean, obviously, when people say, "Hey, how can I find you online?" It's tremendously easy for people to find us. And yeah, anything.it.com, we feel like it's important too, because it's memorable, and there's a whole new inventory of short domain names. So a little plug for it.com there. But and our subdomain business. But the truth is that domain names matter. And Grant pointed out something also important, and that is the credibility that an excellent domain name gives you. When you go to a company and you say, I'm from something short, this, that, whatever.com, any one of those would be important and easy to remember. Okay. Or something you do, cars.com. People don't forget those things. They know what it means. That's why those domains are so valuable. And as you create more complexity in a domain name, you lose value exponentially. So the ability for people to remember and relate, and the mental picture that comes into their mind when they see that domain name, all make a huge difference in you being able to build your business online, or just share your message. You might be a nonprofit. You're muted. Gautam, you're muted.
Sorry. I remember, Vaughn, when I was interviewing you, we discussed about use cases. There's a use case also with respect to this. Short domain, there's use case,
For sure.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember that dot link plays a big role in that also. One, remind me what we discussed this a little bit. That the use case makes so valuable, domain some
Well,
valuable also.
and I think that, yes, I think relevance. So the relevance is extremely important. The use case is obviously very important, and I think that people do take for granted the naming system, the DNS, right? It's so now if you think about it, and it's like, well, it's an imperative. Imagine a world where there weren't any domains. Think about that just literally for a moment, and think about all of the things that you touch on a day-to-day basis in terms of, does it have a domain name associated with it or not? For example, riverside.com, which is the app that you're using to do this broadcast. People are going to go and find it on youtube.com. It's like no domain name, no business. It's not even, it's not possible. And I actually think domain names are actually, domain name internet address is as important a utility as electricity, as power, water. It's fundamental now. It's not even optional, right? And if you think about it, people don't call each other anymore on the telephone. Landlines are almost a thing of the past. Then we all migrated to cell phones, mobile phones. And actually we've migrated to messaging and browsing, and this all runs on top of the DNS. So I think from a point of view of, there's little or no wonder to me that somebody would come and pay $1.5 million for faster.com, because there's only one. There isn't another one. That's it.
It's like art. It's like art, one of a kind. That's how
It,
I think
it
about
is,
it.
but it's highly functional in terms of the value that, if you collect art, you either display it in a museum or you hang it in the dining room of your rather luxury apartment, but only you can see it. The function, the utility that's embedded in a name is off the chart. Which, in a way, it's a shame that we've ended up in the dollar store in certain places where people are selling names for a dollar each. It's the cheapest investment you can ever make is to buy a domain name. It
Now,
really is.
but on that front, and this is something which I want to bring up here. In 2026, is domain listing still smart because of the TLDs? There's so many of them, and then the round is coming up, and God knows how many new TLDs. I don't know, Joe, how many? Like 500 new, 1,000 new, 3,000 new TLDs are going to come up.
Well, we don't know the number, but estimates range from 1,000 to 3,000.
Let-
I'd say it'll be similar to last time. But
Yeah.
that's a two-part question. Your question is domain investing smart? Absolutely yes. There are people that are very good at it. I don't consider myself one of them, by the way. And I'm talking about people who buy and sell .com domains and so forth. So that's not the way I've made my living, but there are some very smart people who know how to do it, who do it regularly. I think there's still opportunity, absolutely. And I consider new TLDs another tier of digital investment or digital ownership. Yeah, you can buy art, but art does just sit on a wall and it does, or in a warehouse and grows in value. But domain names actually increase in value, and they also are you can use them for earning revenue. So I mean, there's double value in domain names, actually more than that. I think and there are collectors. There are people who like to buy domains because they are sort of collectible. There is such a thing, and they do increase in value, and I think they will continue to increase in value. So to answer that question, is domain investing important still or smart? I think so, for sure. Now, there's always hype in any investment environment. So yeah, there's a lot of speculative hype, and you do have to be careful. And there's a lot of talk in the world on forums and in places where people are going to lose money because they're buying into ideas about domain names that are not true, or they don't have the experience enough, or they're not listening enough, and they're just jumping in and starting to invest. And I think that in the realm of just investing in .com domains, or even in the world of new TLDs, a lot of due diligence is required if you want to succeed.
Interesting. Grant, your take on this?
I mean, that's most of our business is what it's run off of, is domain investing. I think it's absolutely.
I thought companies. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I thought it's like companies and branding. So Atom.com customers are coming for investing a lot. Wow.
I mean, we support domain investors. So the idea, sorry, I'll backtrack here and clarify. The idea, the original idea, well, not the original idea, but the idea behind Atom is that there are a lot of people who invest in domain names, but there's not a central place where you can explore them and discover them. So we reach out to the customer who needs a domain name, and we connect them with our curated list of premium brandable domains. So absolutely, in the end, it's about helping a customer find the perfect domain name, and even more so as we become a registrar, leverage AI to help people find available non-aftermarket domains. But once I clarified, now I lost my train of thought. We were going to answer, I think that domain investing is absolutely, I mean, we see it every day where people are making very good returns. But I would absolutely agree with Joe that you have to know what you're doing. You have to think it through. You have to get the right domains. It's a mathematical equation. It's not something you just jump into because you read a blog about it on a Wednesday and you're going to be good at it on Thursday. It's not. It's certainly not that, but it's a great opportunity to own a real digital asset that people, it goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time. It's something that people absolutely need. It's something that absolutely works. It's absolutely functional. I was talking to my wife the other day about investing in gold, and somebody was saying, like, it's a great idea. And theoretically, I have no issues with gold, but I always have this word in the back of my mind, like, it's a shiny rock, right? Gold, in the end of the day, is a shiny rock.
That's point.
A domain is something you absolutely use and as real, significant, meaningful business value.
That's true. What about your take, Vaughn?
I was going to say, if I could offer up an alternate perspective, but actually a supporting perspective to what's been said, done correctly. So is it smart to invest in domains, right? And is it speculative? Yes. Done correctly, and I've met a lot of people in my life. The wealthiest people I've ever met are successful domain investors. They actually have a higher net worth than rock stars, people like John Bon Jovi and Phil Collins, and they have a higher net worth than sports personalities, because you see people who, after a life in entertainment, they've had hit records, albums, their estimated values, 200 or 150 million. That's an awful lot of money, but I can tell you that successful domain investors are in and above that region of wealth. And so the wealthiest people I've ever met in all of my 40 years of traveling around the world doing business are successful domain investors, bar none.
Hmm. Interesting. I would say that when it comes to for like faster.com for 1.5 million versus gold or any other domain, I think domain any day from my personal perspective. Because if you're holding and if you have an amazing domain, short, memorable, etc., like cars.com or whatever, something like that, you can partner with a bunch of folks and can still own it and make a business out of it, on revenue share, leasing, whatever you want to do. So holding gold and waiting for it to grow, property letting it to grow, that's another thing. So yeah, if I had a $500,000 to splurge and if I saw faster.com, yeah, I would like, or something similar to that, and I will snipe it up. I think a domain like that could have sold for much more also, quite possible. I think so
I think there's
because
one more point there, Gautam, as well, which I think it needs to be taken into consideration.
hmm,
Is actually the total number of domains that are currently in circulation
hmm, hmm,
versus the population of the planet. And there is plenty of room for growth. In other words, we were talking before we came live on air, before
hmm,
the number of companies being created, how many people are becoming, connected online.
hmm,
There are a lot of people who are yet to acquire a domain name, be introduced to domain names. There's a lot of untapped market, which then comes back to, is it smart, is it speculative, or is it hype? Well, if done correctly, so you invest smartly, there's plenty of opportunity. The opportunity is probably greater than the hype, in truth. I think there are other markets where the hype has been much greater than the opportunity. And we don't need to delve too far beneath that to figure out what we're talking about. And what we've also seen is, how people have quickly changed into AI, for example.
hmm,
It's like a fashion, right? Everybody's vibe coding, and everybody's into AI.
hmm,
And I was talking to you before. I was on a different podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the rise of AI domains, right? The popularity of AI domains. My assertion was and is that in actual fact, the domain industry has had little or no impact on the growth of AI domains. It's actually AI itself is driving the demand, because the country code AI, which is the country code for Anguilla, has been in existence for an awful long time. But as soon as AI started to rise in popularity, their growth has just gone through the roof. So that's just a great example. If anybody that had bought a .ai name, speculatively invested in AI names 10 years ago, is probably going to be worth more money than John Bon Jovi at this point in time, right? So yes, there is an opportunity, and it's going to keep coming.
Joe,
Yeah,
Joe is saying like I secretly own chat.ai, claude.ai. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I do want to
Sorry,
add a
Joe.
little color to what Vaughn said there. I have something I keep posted on my desk, which I think helps me always stay very positive and excited about domains. Uh, there's about 6 billion people online in the world now. There's about 200 million that are what we would call content creators. So these are people that are like, maybe they're on social networks, maybe they just have a website, maybe they're selling something, maybe they're sharing ideas. So what that means, if you look at that ratio, uh, only 4% of the internet users in the world today are actually doing something. And if you want to do something, usually that does begin, it could begin with social networks, but that's the wrong way, honestly. The truth is, if you really want to own something, build something, you know, you need a domain name. And so you can use social networks to gather traffic, to gather an audience, to build a mailing list. But if you want to keep that audience, okay, and you don't want to end up like people who used to be on Friendster or MySpace or GeoCities or, all these social networks that are gone today, where people lost their work, you need a domain name. use the social networks to find your audience, and use a domain name and a mailing list, an email list. By the way, yes, email is not dead, and I don't think it's going to go away for a long time. We all still have email addresses, to keep and own that audience.
I think Joe raises a very important point as well, and maybe some people in the audience may or may not know this, because we've been talking about buying domains, and the fact of the matter is you don't actually own it. You actually own the right to use it. So, and as Joe's saying, get your domain name, but it's imperative that you keep hold of it and keep renewing it to maintain the continuity of contact and a clear line of sight with your audience. Because people think they go and register a name, they own it. They're effectively buying the right to use it for a 12-month period is what they're actually doing. So what's really quite astonishing and amazing is that the name that Grant was referencing at 1.5 million was probably created for about $10, right? So is investing smart, speculative, or stupid? $10 in, $1.5 million out. I'll let the audience decide whether it was a good idea or not. Whoever got it first time round, and if they were the final person. But it's nuanced, but it's important to understand. You're actually, when you're registering a name, you're basically acquiring the right to use it.
I think the registrars like Namecheap or GoDaddy or Atom.com, no matter what, they make money. People have to renew it.
Of course. No, it's good for everybody. The
Yeah.
whole ecosystem, but it's important. I think there's another point here that we didn't really pick up on, is the continuity and the stability of the DNS.
Mm.
Because what we have seen recently are some announcements relating to Web3 domains, right? You really want to be focusing your attention on the DNS because there's some level of guarantee in terms of continuity and it's predictable, right? So when we were talking about smart investments and non-smart investments, you basically have to weigh the upside versus the downside, right? And usually if people are making huge gains very quickly, it's because it's a risky investment. DNS and investment in domains are a long-term investment that usually provide a good yield because it's sat on top of an international, a global system that is stable and secure.
I hear you.
Another piece of, is domain investing a good thing? A lot of times, we think of it as the people who invest in multiple domains to build a portfolio, but we also talk about the end user. The end user should think about the domain, especially if it's a premium domain, as an investment. Like putting 1.5 million into Faster, like that's not a purchase, right? That's an investment. That's something that is going to, in some cases, going to even be on your books. What is the return on investment of that? That's an important way to think about a domain for your company when you're building something that you're going to actually use.
I think it will hold its value. That's the worst case scenario for some sort of time. Or if somebody else says, hey, listen, like I'm going to give you $250,000 more, will you sell it to me for 1.75 tomorrow? And say, sure, let's make a quick buck. And it happens in the space because I see on X.com this happening all the time. On that front, the new TLDs which are coming up, and this is something which this question is from me, okay? Are new TLDs real opportunities or is going to be immense confusion? I don't know. I think it's going to be confusion, but gentlemen, would love your take on it. Joe, why don't you start off with this?
Well, obviously it's going to be both, and it depends on your perspective. New TLDs in 2012 caused a lot of confusion. There's still a lot of confusion about them. But for any clear-minded person, you look at it one of two ways. There's, from the perspective of the person applying for a new TLD, well, if they know what they are doing, if they did their research, if they're applying in if they choose a string, whatever that string is, if there's a reason or an idea behind it that has value, I think it's a tremendous, great idea for them. And by the way, I worked with about 60 applicants in 2012. nobody lost money. Everybody made money. Their TLDs were either profitable or still existing, or they sold them or exited out of them, and they went away with a lot more than they put in. Was it risky back then? Absolutely. Is it risky this time? Absolutely. It's, there's just different kinds of risks this time, but last time it was risky too. So I don't look at myself as a salesperson for new TLDs. Absolutely not. I do look at myself as an enabler for good ideas. And so we help people to apply for their new TLD and run the registry, right? More run the registry. That's really what we are at our very core. IT.com is a registry service provider. But bottom line is, there is an opportunity right now to be one of less than 2,000 individual spots in the IANA route, which is really what the internet is. Now you compare that to about 386 million domain names registered under .com, net, org, all the new TLDs and country codes. That's a really special place to be, and in my opinion, it's very valuable as long as you're willing to go through the rigors required to get a new top level domain, and it isn't going to be easy. That's why consulting and talking to people that have been through it before is so important, and there are people out there that will help you to make a decision about something like that. But in my view, new TLDs are a great opportunity for entrepreneurs and for brands. A lot of the best brands did it last time. Now, some of them, they had varying degrees of success. There's a couple of companies like .sky that use their TLDs. BMW seems to be using their TLD. I think I'd much rather spend my dollars, if I were a big advertiser, on my brand, .bmw, rather than bmw.com. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't use their bmw.com. There's still a lot of equity in those .com names, and it's not going to go away right away. But why should a big brand who's spending many millions of dollars be advertising that? And actually, with no disrespect to VeriSign and to .com, they're tremendously important to all of us here and to all, the entire internet. But if I were a big brand and I was spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising, I'd want it to be on my brand, not anything else. Nothing else besides that. Now, I'd still keep my .com version because it's got so much equity. It's not going away, but I certainly wouldn't make it more famous. I would make my brand more famous, and that's what this opportunity represents for growing brands. It's only $237,000, or $27,000, and well, there's fees beyond that, but $500,000 is a drop in the bucket when you compare the ad budgets of some of these huge companies that are building equity in another TLD besides their own, and they can own their own now.
Interesting point. Very, very good point. What do you think?
Confusing or not, I mean, I foresee a similar thing to happen that will happen this time as last time, which is a core group of domains will remain the center of everything. .com will probably not go away. I just don't see that happening. It has too much. It's just been there for too long. You'll see .ai will continue to pick up. I was using the analogy of, most of us run internet businesses today, right? And nobody says internet business. It's just a thing. You run a business, it's on the internet, right? What's going to happen is that's how AI is going to be. You're not going to say I run an AI business. AI is going to become that the deeper layer, just like the internet has become. So I see .ai continuing to grow. And then you'll have trends like IO picked up in the startup space, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody predicted it, but the reason that it happened is I think for one and only one reason. People want single English word domains. That's where it started. And .com single English words are always the best, but startups in particular, that's not always affordable. So you'll keep seeing this trend. You'll also see the trend of different groups of people using domains .gg in gaming, .xyz in crypto. I think that'll keep happening. And that's the biggest opportunity for these new extensions. If you have a good, if you have a group a lot of groups will continue to form around a sub extension. But what you also saw is the moment that that sub extension, the group focused on a sub extension, wanted to become more mainstream, usually they wanted to get out of the other extension that they want. You still see most big companies on .coms, and I think I can't see that going away. I could be wrong, but it's been the case. Again, I see this kind of threefold, almost fourfold path. .com remains king. AI continues to grow in authority and stays where it is and grows and kind of becomes that second one next to .com. You'll still have trends, and IO kind of is going down a little bit and it comes back, but you might have other ones that come in there. And then you'll have communities, and that's always a great opportunity, because the registry business is pretty nice, as in there's an upfront investment and there's an operational investment, but there's a lot of good, the business model is nice. You just keep selling these things and you make, you're making
Yeah.
amount of money every time you sell one domain. So if you can get any kind of scale, the math is pretty good. That's my theory, at least.
Vaughn, your take. Opportunity or confusion? Especially let's say if we come up with TLD like .jo. Opportunity or
I mean,
confusion?
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Everybody should buy .jo.
I know.
So I'm in a way, I'm with Joe on this, right? There's opportunity and there's potential for confusion. And that is true today. It was true yesterday, and it'll be true tomorrow, right? The people that see the reality the clearest, will win out, and people will see the opportunities and they'll make good on that. There'll be people that are confused and don't really know what to do. And those people, by the way, exist today. It's not a unique, it's not like, after the reveal date, all of a sudden we're either, it's either an opportunity or confusion. There's an element of that. But I actually think it's an opportunity, but I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I always look at the world as an opportunity. But I do think there's a couple of things going to happen, right? And I think there is going to be a bit of a bifurcation. Comms are predominantly registered by humans. And I think one of the things that we have to think about is the agentic web and how names are registered in the future. And agents are not necessarily going to be too worried about the .com suffix, right? They may not be, because I think that the balancing act here is cost versus availability, right? And as the web becomes more programmable and agentic web and all these other acronyms and words that people throw about all over the place, is if agents are going to start registering domain names, how many agents are going to have access to $1.5 million to be able to go and buy faster.com? They're probably not. They're probably going to buy a lot of a much greater volume of, lower price point names anyway. I also think that the industry as a whole has done okay, but needs to do better in terms of universal acceptance. And when I talk about universal acceptance, I'm talking about the acceptance universal. These names are universally accepted, right? And I think what happened in the last round, I think that a lot of people thought these names were going to sell themselves, and that clearly is not the case. So you have a very dominant player in terms of .com. It's broadly accepted. Most people know exactly what .com is, right? You hear it all the time. We all go to these different conferences. If we've had this conversation once, we've had it 1,000 times. You get in the back of the taxi, the guy says, "Where do you want to go to?" "I want to go to the hotel down in wherever it is in Las Vegas." "What business are you in?" "I'm in the domain industry." "What's that?" "Never heard of it." Right? If you talk to relatives, you go out for dinner, people are like, "I've never heard of this." So what's actually quite interesting is the internet business is basically controlled, run by a very small number of people by comparison to the global audience. What we as an industry have got to get much better at doing is promoting the different use cases and the relevance of these TLDs to a much broader audience, right? And I do believe there's a certain amount of laziness there, right? Is people sell what people want to buy. It's a very tough road to go and start selling something that nobody's ever heard of. But eventually, if you get enough adoption, then it starts to become almost like a de facto standard, right? So it's the 50th anniversary of Apple right around now. There was a point in time they couldn't sell a computer to sell their life. Now there's a queue at the mall. You have to wait to speak to the Apple representative.
Genius reservation, it's called a genius bar.
Now, but you get my point.
Good
right?
point. Yeah.
And I do believe that this is an opportunity. The last round was in 2012. Now we're in 2026, right? So 14 years has passed. You had hair back in the day, Gautam, 14 years ago. Now we don't have as much as we used to. Joe had got really dark hair, and Grant was still at school, right? So a lot of time has passed, and there's probably going to be quite a lot of time before the next round, which is why it's an opportunity. What you do with that opportunity as well, that makes a big difference. And the problem is people, if they don't act upon it, they're going to end up being mildly miffed that they missed the opportunity. Is it all going to be sparkly and sparkles and pinks and who knows? Like, you just don't know. But we at Nova Registry, we're going to apply for 200 TLDs, right? So we're pretty confident that there is an opportunity. And the guy that owns Nova Registry is a guy called Yoni Belasov, who's probably quite well known to some of your audience. Yoni has been a big investor in .com names. This guy is very astute, very smart. He would not be investing $35-40 million in application fees alone if he didn't think there was an opportunity. So I'm in the opportunity camp, but I do recognize that we have to conquer the confusion in order to be successful.
Joe, you were saying something.
Yeah, I wanted to share something that I keep in front of me. So right now, one of the things that's happening is, oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Hold on, give me a second to fix this.
While you do that, Grant is like thinking like, I need to like sell my house for these TLDs.
No, here it is. I found my note. But under Common Net, I said earlier there's about 386 million domains. That was at the end of 2025, I believe. That was about 22 million more than 2024. So about a 6% growth year over year in the whole industry. Now, one of the things that's interesting is Com and Net, the most important domains in the world, or some of the most important in the world, they had a growth rate of about 2%, whereas all of the new TLDs, which are lesser in number, but all of the new TLDs that were introduced in 2012 had a growth rate from 24 to 25 of almost 30%. So what does that tell you? It tells you that a lot of the new growth, the younger generation, the people who are like just coming into the market, they can't afford to spend $1.5 million on a .com domain. And they don't even want to spend $100 on a .com domain or 200. So they're opting for that, new TLD at a very low price. By the way, not all new TLDs are low prices, but some of them are actually higher, annually. But in truth, new TLDs are growing at a much quicker rate than the traditional TLDs. Does that mean I think .com is going away? Absolutely not. It just means that there is interest and there is a market for new TLDs. They are growing a lot faster than the traditional ones.
Just one thing, we've been saying this large number for .coms. I don't want any of your viewers to get confused. There are still lots of .coms that are available for $12, whatever the going rate is. And there's still a lot of good ones. It's just the best of the best of the best are very expensive.
At atom.com as well, by the way, Grant, correct?
Atom.com was not bought for $12.
No, but you've got plenty of good ones available.
We have great ones. Yeah, we even have AI to help people find them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a good point. And we have discussed this topic, and I already had this preloaded. Will domains even matter in 10 years? One, you just touched on this a little bit with the agentic AI looking for domains, etc. But here's the thing, and Joe, you were just speaking about some numbers. I believe 1 billion people are using ChatGPT and Claude every single day. 1 billion, maybe, right? Somewhere around that. So that means maybe like half of this planet will be using Claude and ChatGPT, free or paid version, whatever, in the next few years, 5 years, let's say. Okay, half of this planet will be using it. So,
I'd like to hit that one because I feel real strong about this. Will domains matter in 10 years? I think absolutely. And I'll give you just an example. Gautam, in the physical world, do you have a physical address? I can assume the answer is
Of
yes.
course.
It's still probably posted on your front door.
Hmm.
So do I. And all of us live in this virtual world, but we still keep physical addresses that have been around for thousands of years. Remember, domain names are your virtual address today. So yes, even though people are going to go to Claude and to ChatGPT to find answers, no company in their right mind and no person in their right mind wants to leave it up to Claude or ChatGPT to determine where those people are directed. We have free agency. We want to maintain our free agency. As long as until AI wipes out the human race, we're going to need domain names. Okay. So
And when's that going to happen, Joe?
That part I can't answer. But my point is that, people like their independence. General Motors wants to tell people go to generalmotors.com. Verizon wants to tell people to go to verizon.net. All these companies want to be able to direct people to their website where they control the messaging, where they own the audience. So they don't want to leave that up to ChatGPT. So from a consumer point of view, it's, people are going to want to get instant answers, and these AI tools will let them do that. But from a business perspective and from a communication perspective, people still want to keep their addresses. I want to have, we have it.com. I have alagna.com. And maybe one day I'll get .joe. I don't know, but I doubt it. I'm kidding. But point is that we have free agency and we want to maintain it. So addresses, domain names, URLs, suffixes, all of that. I don't think they're going anywhere for a long time, not in my lifetime. That's my belief, right or wrong.
Let's see. What's your perspective, Grant, or you go for it?
Well, I've got a slightly different perspective on it. Are they still going to be around in 10 years? Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. Just to pick up on a couple of things that Joe said, and I do agree that people should have their own address, their own identity, as it were. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that, generally speaking, most people are lazy, right? So they would rather use an identifier that is provided to them by a platform, whether that's Instagram or, these other platforms, right? Because they make it easy. You can go and sign up. The problem is with domain names, it just takes a little bit more effort to configure a system and the DNS and the like. So I don't share the same optimism as Joe, because if it were true, we'd already be doing it. And we already know that your data gets sold, and we know that you get farmed, and we still do it willingly. And if that were not true, there wouldn't be as many people on Gmail, right? Because it's the ultimate honeypot. How many people have got a Gmail account? And that is running on gmail.com, right? So there's a lot of value in that particular domain name. And at any particular point in time, those people are susceptible to the introduction of some kind of subscription. And it will happen at some point in time. I do believe that AI and domain names are inextricably linked. In other words, the billions of people that are using Claude, not everybody's going to get a domain name. That's not actually the point. That's not really the issue. What's going to happen is that the platforms like Claude are actually going to start registering names, right? So it won't be the end user that's buying it. The system will be propagating a lot more names on the web, right? So these can be unique identifiers for, the Internet of Things or whatever it happens to be. I'm with Joe. These are going to matter even more in 10 years from now. I guess where my view is slightly different from Joe's is actually the way that will evolve and how it's used. And established norms and behavior would say that we as a species are not ready to cross the chasm and fully embrace domains because we're a bit lazy and we'd rather piggyback on gmail.com or instagram.com or whatever.
Point.
That is my perspective on that particular question.
Grant.
I'm in the Joe bucket. I remember when I started my career, it was like social media is the thing. There was a press release where the Comcast was getting on social media, and everybody was like, "Oh, the internet's dead. Everybody's going to do everything on social media." And I see a lot of similarities between social media and AI. But what really happened was the buyer decision was, went over to social media, and people had many more points of contact before they started engaging. But the main engagement is always going to be on the site that the company uses. Like, Claude is never going to be some AI in space, I don't think. Maybe it goes into the metaverse. I don't know. I'm a human win. I'm on the side of humans are going to win this whole thing. Humans are going to stay human, and businesses are going to stay businesses, just like the internet. Like the humans still need to be involved. Will it all change? Yes. Now, what I do agree with is could Claude then create a email at Claude, and then does Gmail go away? Sure, absolutely. So is there a shift in how all of this works? But does the fundamental unit of doing business for domains to go away, the fundamental unit of doing business online would have to change. And I don't see that any business would just give itself up to, a something like Claude. Claude's going to find it, and then they're going to go off to the other platform. It could become more integrated, but I almost hope.
Just to be clear on that, Grant, I'm not saying that people will hand over to Claude. I'm saying that Claude will actually hand over to the people. They'll start doing it for you. And there's no way, I don't think for 1 minute AI is going to sort of see the end of the human race. I think.
Oh, it's exaggerated. Yeah.
No, but it's a fair point. But there's a lot of things going on in the world right at this very minute that could actually precipitate the end of everybody, and it won't be AI necessarily, right?
Yes.
No, it's true.
It's true, yeah.
I was using AI over 3 years ago. A very good friend of mine was actually ran a business, a guy called Mark Hardgrove, based out of Florida. And
The Hoth.
And
Yeah.
Mark he did have a platform called Copymatic. And Mark was one of the very first businesses that actually had a commercial relationship with OpenAI. And so he was at the time, I mean, this is going back 3-4 years, maybe even more, 3-4 years, certainly. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars in monthly fees related to API calls, right? When you had to pay to use ChatGPT. That's not the case today. If you go on Google and put in ChatGPT, press the link, which is on a domain name, right? So we're still part of the ecosystem at this particular point in time. But then you had to pay for that. luxury 3-4 years ago. Mark had got a really great business, and then all of a sudden he woke up and it was free. His business tanked because now people didn't have to pay him $70 a month. You could go and get it for free. But I think what definitely is so AI is something that I personally have been using over the last several years. One of the reasons that we've been able to scale our business at Nova, people often say to me, God, you guys, you must have a really big marketing department. No, we're just a bit savvier and we use technology very efficiently. And I think that's where the real opportunity is when people dial into that. So you'll have producers and consumers. And the producers will be the ones registering the names, or they'll have agents registering on their behalf. And then you'll have everybody else will be, as usual, sat at home eating the popcorn, waiting to be fed by somebody else. That's the way it is.
I call them consumers versus creators. We want to be consumers. I mean, we want to be creators. I mean, hey, by the way, one little nuance that is interesting, and it's just coming to my mind as we're talking about this all, is related to domain names. AI doesn't necessarily need domain names. They can talk to each other in their own language that even humans don't understand. And it's very possible that if AI are registering web addresses, they could use IP addresses because they can remember those addresses that people can't.
Fingerprint.
So just to play the devil's
yeah.
what did you call it?
A fingerprint, JS. That's how people, they remembered, and they know that even if you're not logged in from the same computer IP.
On that though, Joe, and I do agree with you. So AI to AI, they'll remember the IP address. But you've got to make it memorable for the billions of people who can't remember an IP address, right? And that's the whole point.
I will add something here. And we're about to come up. We almost come out of time, but I will add something here. And this again ties into all of you, especially you, Joe, of the address part. Landline. Do you all have a landline at your home? Like pick up the phone, landline?
I don't anymore, no.
You see,
I held out for a long time, but now I don't.
You see where I'm going. Everybody had a landline, and then BlackBerry and Apple and Samsung and Huawei, whatever came, and nobody has a landline. So,
by the way, I kept mine for so long only because it was the last copper line in my neighborhood. And I actually used to have electricity right there, and I just didn't want to disconnect it because I knew I'd never get it again.
The way AI is moving, I don't think domains are going to go vanish like in 10 years or even 20 years. But the way AI is moving, I think there'll be an evolution. We don't know what it's going to be, but there's going to be something we may not need domains. But domains will still be there.
But you still have phone numbers, though, so you have to... It's not, phone numbers didn't go away. Landlines went away.
Yeah,
they did.
It's the way you use it; it changes. But
No,
it's true. So I live in Malta, and if Melita is my local ISP, and when you sign up for the basic bundle, they insist on giving you a landline, and I'm like, I don't want it. Just take that. But here's the reality, right? What does Claude run on today?
Who knows? Aliens running it is so good. It's so good.
Okay. And what does ChatGPT run on? One for you, Joe.
What does it run on? You mean as far as the URL?
Well, without the domain name, you ain't got a business.
I access it by typing in a URL. Exactly.
Do you know how much they paid for chat.com?
15 million. Dharmesh Shah. I know the news.
My hypothesis is that AI and domains are inextricably linked. And I actually think that it's good for the industry. And all we have to do is call the Minister of Telecommunications in Anguilla and ask him if his dramatic increase in GDP is a welcome opportunity or not. And I think you'll find the answer is yes, it is.
Does anybody know what that number? I was thinking about that. What percentage of his GPT is that? Or GDP is it?
Is it? I don't know.
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Well, it's
crazy.
huge in relative sense because there's not much industry there. It's just
Can
an
you
island.
just do it? Just put the prompt in, Joe, while we're chatting. Just ask what percentage of Anguilla's GDP is related to the .ai CCTLD.
Okay.
Good point. Maybe 50%. I don't know.
I thought it was in like the 20s or 30s. I thought I read
I
that.
think it's going to be a big one.
Attributable.
It will be a big number. It will be definitely a big number. But yeah, I don't think domains are going to go there.
So then think about the trickle-down effect. Go on, Joe. Have you got the number?
It's coming. The percentage. It's thinking. My AI is thinking.
Yeah. Let's see. 16.5%. My AI says that. 16.5 roughly.
Boys, I'm on the slowest version of Atlas GP.
No, it says 16.5% in
You found it?
2025. Yeah,
Just need to pedal a bit
By
faster.
the way, they do have, it doesn't say it here. I just happen to know a little bit about these islands. They also have fishing rights that go around their islands.
but 16.5% of the entire country.
Actually, it's not just all going to the island, is what it's starting to say. It's still thinking, believe it or not. But it's not all going to the island. It's
going to Identity Digital because they run the.
It says it's about 19. Upper bound estimate is about 19% of their GDP. Their AI revenue is about 85 million. Anguilla's GDP was about 450 million. So it's about 18 or 19%. Is what ChatGPT says.
It's a good number, right? And the trickle down effect of that is more people are going to Anguilla to visit, to talk to the government, right? That the registrars are all flying over there. You know, it's having a positive impact. You can only register a minimum 2-year registration. You can't even do a single. You have to buy 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and what are they? $200 for a registration?
$70. 70 or 100.
150 for the 2 years, give or take.
Right?
Good prices at Adam.com.
No, exactly. 150 for 2 years. How much is that compared to a .com?
Way higher.
A lot. It's more than 10x.
There you go.
No, that's not correct. Oh,
so they're actually great bedfellows. AI and domains are inextricably linked. And I think when this next round post-reveal and whoever decides that they want to, run .agent, it'll go for a phenomenal amount of money. There's already, there's an organization touting around now, trying to create a community so that it's available to everybody. There's going to be a lot of money changing hands here because the money's gone from crypto, Web3, it's gone into AI, and that money's going to get circulated back into TLDs. I'm telling you.
I will just end this stage.
Most of it's going to go to ICANN, by the way.
Oh, of course. They're going to make a lot of money no matter what. But here's a funny thing which I will say, and then I will end this. Okay. I bet after the big sale of AI.com for 70-80 million, in the next 5 years or so, we'll see a .ai being sold upwards of $50 million. I'm 100% sure about it. Maybe it's already happening in the next year or so. So imagine 5 or 6 sales like that. That's like the entire .ai stuff. I think that's possible. Grant, what would you say?
I don't know if it's going to go that high. It depends on. It could.
5 years. I mean, not even 10. 5 years.
You're looking at an asset that's built on, 3 signals: defining .com and the biggest trend possibly in the history of the modern world. So I don't know if you're gonna match that sale anytime soon. That was.
We'll come back. We'll come back in 5 years and look at this because this is going. This part.
The single English word.coms are absolutely valuable and they're beautiful assets. I'll agree with that.
Anyways,
well, anything is possible with the amount of money that people were spending on Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Absolutely.
Anyways, thank you everybody. Thank you to all of my viewers. Thank you, Joe, Grant, and Vaughn, for joining me today. We brought on some very cool topics. This can go on for another hour, I'm pretty sure about that. But we should regroup again in a few months after the round, especially when the new TLDs come. And Vaughn is going to tell us, we got these. Joe says, I'm working on these many more. Grant is like, oh, I can't sleep now. I've got to integrate with 2,000 more TLDs, especially .joe, .this, .that. So I
We
think
have a lot of
waiting
work
for
to do
that show.
in the coming months.
yeah, but when is it announced? Just to understand, is it September, October? When is it?
It opens in April and ends in August.
And
The application window.
Yeah, so the application window is 30th of April. It closes on the 12th of August, and I think the reveal date, Joe, is 19th of October.
Yeah, I don't know the reveal date, but it'll follow.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
the exact date.
Interesting. Grant, you know exactly when you're going to be really busy and need to hire like 50 more people integrating that stuff. You know,
Exactly.
sales are going to go through the roof.
It's going to be a fun day.
Go.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.
Pleasure.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Bye.